They're not gangs where friends have got together and stuff like that. These people would sit in family environments together, knowing what they're doing together outside as well. They thought these girls were easy pickings and easy prey, and they've gone for them.
The wives know?
I believe.
How prevalent are the Muslim grooming gangs?
It's quite scary. So how come you're hurting these children beyond? We had a very high-profile case, and she was a Sikh girl. This girl at 15 was horrendously tortured. We were able to get 6 convictions there. There was this 17-year-old girl, they'd taken her. Do you know what? Till this date, I don't even know if the girl exists or not.
What happens when you try to contact the parents?
Nothing. Dead.
Why is Tommy Robinson such a fan of yours?
We had a girl who was sexually assaulted in his hometown in Luton. I don't know who invited him in or how he was there. You've probably got to go and ask him why he was so impressed.
61% of regular Heretics viewers haven't subscribed yet. Can I ask you a favour? If you love these fearless conversations, hit subscribe now because it's free, takes 2 seconds and powers our mission. Mohan Singh, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So you're a Sikh leader. Tell me briefly, what does that mean?
Well, I was president of a Sikh Gurdwara, place of worship. That's a Gurdwara, and that sort of represented about 5,000 Sikhs in the South Birmingham area, and then was made general secretary of 12 different Gurdwaras, so that sort of broadened the sort of scope that I was dealing with. And then through the Sikh Awareness Society, we just connected to Sikhs around the world, to be honest. So I wouldn't class myself as a leader, only an advisor, say.
Okay, yeah. I understand that. And how many Sikhs are held up as an example of really good integration in the United Kingdom. Is that fair to say? And how many are there in the UK?
I would say legally about sort of 600,000. They probably, about 600,000 according to the last census. And we have been sort of coming in since the early 60s. But we do have a Sikh Gurdwara, which was built in 1908 in Shepherd's Bush, and it still exists.
Wow.
So one of the oldest Gurdwaras in Europe.
Is that a kind of temple?
Yeah, that's the Gurdwara is you could call it like a temple or a church. It's a place of worship.
And what is it about Sikhs that has made them adapt quite well to the UK?
I think we're taught to look at the common good, the common values wherever you go. So you connect yourself better. Now, I always say that 95% of all humanity and all religions have a common denominator, and we work on that and leave the 5% that sort of disrupts you. So when you're working with people, you find common ground, you find shared values, and work on that, and it's life is beautiful.
I first heard your name mentioned by Tommy Robinson. Mm-hmm. I was out interviewing him in Benidorm before his recent arrest, and he spoke glowingly about you. And I think that was important because a lot of people consider those who are concerned about things like the grooming gangs. I know we're supposed to just say the R word now to show what it actually is, but YouTube doesn't like it, so I try to sort of moderate that a little bit. But I understand totally that argument. But that this is not about sort of a racism aspect, or we're against anybody who's from Asian descent or anything like that. It is really something specific to Islam. Why is Tommy Robinson such a fan of yours?
I think as far back as I can remember, the first time I sort of met him, we had a girl who was sexually assaulted in his hometown in Luton. We got called out by the community to address the problem because the perpetrator was only charged on common assault when it was a lot worse than that. So we spoke at the local temple. I don't know who invited him in or how he was there, but he saw us sort of talking to about 500 Sikhs, and then we sort of walked over to the police station, and there was a protest, at which he was there at the protest. And then he's been to maybe a couple of programs that we've done in Hindu temples and stuff like that. And ours is all about sort of educating people, raising awareness on the taboo issues regarding sexual grooming, the red flags. And it's about prevention is better than the cure. And you've probably got to go and ask him why he was so impressed, but I'm just doing what I'm doing, and that's just about educating and raising awareness within the Sikh community and the Hindu community and whoever calls us. So we have been raising since 97. We've been raising awareness on these crimes when they came to light to us. And I think it was somewhere around about 2012, I think, that he came across us in the Luton Temple.
I see.
Yeah.
Is much of your role then about, as you say, spreading awareness about what seems to be an issue with Islamic grooming gangs? Is that something that's been imported from South Asia? Because I've heard that was something that people in Sikh and Hindu communities have been aware of in India as well, and Pakistan and Bangladesh.
Well, we were aware I've grown up in this country. I was 2 years old, 2.5 years old when I come to this country. So, we were hearing stories in the 80s, early 80s, but not really sort of taking any notice of what was going on. And then as you get involved in the community, I think it was 93, I joined the the Gurdwara, became the president, the youngest president in the UK as a Sikh in a Gurdwara. And then obviously the more you're in the community, the more you're going to hear things, and people will come and talk to you. And I had the sort of gift of speaking in the Punjabi language, where I could communicate with the elders in the community, but I could also talk to the youth, and going to sort of schools, sixth form schools, to talk about Sikhi in general, the Sikh faith, colleges, universities, gurdwaras. We had a good connection, and through that we were hearing a lot of stories and events, and certain people coming up with their accounts of what happened to them. And then because we had access to other gurdwaras and the community at large, we were feeling that nobody's really talking about these issues. I didn't pick it up in the papers or anything like that, so nobody was talking about it. So we thought, why don't we create a society that just raises awareness on these issues? And then, like I said, prevention is better than the cure. If people know what to look out for, they will be able to protect themselves. And it started in a very localized way. And it was very tough for us as well to go into places of worships like the gurdwaras, to talk about taboo issues, which you could sort of understand that it's a place of worship, and that's just about worshipping and not talking about taboo issues. And we were able to sort of, with eyebrows raised, we were able to sort of get through that. And then the wider gurdwaras, the West Midlands, UK. And it was in 2013, we got contacted by the BBC, purely because I think there was a cameraman who worked with the Panorama crew. His niece was in a lot of trouble, and we were able to help his niece. And he was so shocked with what had happened, and also the way we were able to sort of handle the situation within 3 days. And he says this should be brought out to the wider audience. And we started talking to the BBC. filming had started, and we were able to sort of give them live cases, which they covered. And I think as far back as I can remember, 2013, September the 2nd is when it came out. And we were against Corrie on the other side.
Yeah.
And
that's Coronation. For any Americans watching, it's Coronation Street.
It's Coronation
Street. It's a soap opera.
Okay. We were able to beat their audience that day. And the documentary itself got a European award as well. What had happened is that because we had sent certain youngsters for their safekeeping out the country into North America, the BBC did fly out to interview them, victims who are survivors now. And so BBC World Service picked it up or something. And then that sort of propelled us out to North America, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere. So while we were just raising awareness here, it sort of went manic. And according to the BBC, they said that their iPlayer crashed the next day because that was the most searched program. So because of that, it just sort of went everywhere. And then from small bunch of people, charity, handling a case here and there, and, you know, woof, you had a whole, and people would want to share their stories, what happened to them 10 years ago, what happened to them 15 years ago. And it's not then just about sharing stories, it's about getting the help. And I have a motto: from victimhood to survivorhood, from survivor to thriver. So that's where we want to take the person when the person comes to us. It might be a victim, but we want to not just surviving and not just having a certain quality of life, but thriving in life afterwards.
With everything going on right now, economic uncertainty, inflation, debt talk, I've been thinking a lot about how to actually protect my savings. That's why I've partnered with Gold Co., a trusted precious metals company that helps people like us diversify with gold and silver. Gold prices have had massive jumps before. Between 2016 and 2020, they went up 55.6%, hitting over $2,000 an ounce. And by early 2025, gold was already sitting at around $2,700. With the dollar having lost its purchasing power since 1971, according to Visual Capitalist, it just makes sense to at least learn about your options. Gold Co. makes it incredibly easy, whether you want to buy gold and silver directly or open a precious metals IRA. There's no minimum, and they guide you through the process step by step. Their team is super professional, helpful and friendly. Right now, they're offering a free 2025 gold and silver kit, and on qualified accounts, you could even get up to 10% back in free silver with no cap. Just go to andrewlovesgold.com. Again, that's andrewlovesgold.com to get your free kit and learn more. The link is down below.
How prevalent are the Muslim grooming gangs?
I'd say I don't blame the whole Muslim community. That would be very silly of us to do that. But there are a high percentage of Pakistani sexual grooming gangs. Now, I would like to use another word for it, but obviously certain words we can't use. These are groups of people. These are people known to each another. They're not gangs where friends have got together and stuff like that. If you look at the very dynamics of these are people known to them. These are family members. These are relatives. It's quite scary. So I wouldn't blame the whole community, but there is a high percentage within that they thought these girls were easy pickings and easy prey, and they've gone for them. And it's horrible with some of the crimes that some of the stuff that the girls went through. Whether it's their cultural background, whether it's where they've come from, whether they've deemed that others' children are fair game, that's something they got to really investigate. But
you must have some suspicions about why it's so endemic to British Islam or British Pakistani Muslims?
I have, but then again, there's some certain words that I don't think I would be able to really share them because they are sort of deep and. But treating young people as objects and below how they treat animals. Where are they getting that? Where are these people getting that? I was talking to a father only about 4 days ago whose daughter's insides have been ripped out completely and she can't have any children. You know, so what kind of mindset that you have to be so depraved to do something like that? And that just doesn't destroy the child. It destroys the whole family unit. It messes everybody up in the family, the mother, the father, the extended family. And so you're just not sort of destroying a child. You're destroying the whole network, the whole fabric of that network. And talking to him and cry, you know, basically crying still. And this is a historical case. This is going back probably 10, 15 years. And he was saying that it's all started in when she went to work in a restaurant. And they were so nice and kind and everything like that. And the free food and made you feel like, you know, like a princess, more or less. So we call it love bombing, where you completely love bombed and you think this is the best thing since sliced bread. And, you know, and this guy who really loves me, he's got a hotel, I mean, he's got a restaurant, he's got a business, he's got everything. So, you know, it's all hunky-dory and then drugged and then raped by other people. And then, and can you imagine the level of abuse that child went through, having her internals all ripped up apart? And the police and the authorities got that case completely wrong. They didn't even investigate it, and they messed it up big time.
When you say ripped apart, is it
internally she's so damaged that she can't have children
from the violent way that they abused her? The
violent way they abused her, whether she was being abused all the time, whether there was, I don't know whether I'm able to say that, whether objects were used or whatever. It was just very violent.
Are these the kinds of things that you are dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, we had a very high-profile case in Leicester in 2013. We had a young, she was a Sikh girl, and a sort of a challenged in a way. She had lost a friend of hers from the age of 9, I think. So she never had any counselling or anything like that. So she was suffering from sort of slight little mental health issues. This girl at 15 was horrendously tortured for about 6 to 8 weeks. I remember just as we normally go out to do talks, and I was in Leicester University doing a talk, and he was open to all. And the father approached me. He says, "I don't know what's going on with my daughter, but she's sort of fallen down, and CAMs are involved, and everybody's involved, but she's not talking to anyone." And so I remember it was a Tuesday night, and early November. And then I went on the Saturday, sat with her for 10, 15 minutes. For some godly reason, unknown to me, she started talking to me. And some of the stuff she was coming out with was just horrendous just to listen to. And so we sort of had her followed, had her sort of watched her for over a month. We'd known where she was going, which house, which flats she was taken to.
Like spies, you sort of Sikh spies, like checking.
Well, it was more of a company that we used, a private investigation.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is really involved.
Yeah. So because what was happening was they would pick her up at sort of college at say about 12 o'clock. She would be taken to hotels. She would be taken places, and then
how old was she?
She had just turned 16. When I first met her, she was 15, but she just turned 16. And then by about 3:30, she would be at the college that she attended so her parents can pick her up. And the parents were none the wiser of what was happening. So in between them 4 hours. And so we then decided with the family, this is the steps we need. We need to know exactly her movements and everything. We collected the data that was given to us, the videos of her going into flats and stuff like that. And then we had a meeting with the social services, the sexual grooming team, and the police at Leicester. They picked up the case, but then, to my surprise, she was still sexually assaulted on, even though that they had the case. And then we had to take this young lady out of that particular area and rehouse her in South London, and then move her around so that nobody can sort of track where she is and not. And then I think it was somewhere around about January 14th or 15th where we gave a video evidence to the police. And by July, I think, three had already pleaded guilty to what they were doing to her. 3 didn't plead guilty, so he went to court, and after 3 days evidence, her video evidence, they pleaded guilty as well. So we were able to get 6 convictions there. And the level of abuse is that it was horrendous. And even I think I remember looking at her body one day. Mentally, she was not all there. She cut herself with a blade in 209 places. Can you imagine the body of a child cut in 209? Wherever her hands would reach, she'd cut.
She was dead?
No, she's alive, but she was just cutting herself, and her stomach and her legs and her arms, and I think I've still got pictures of that, and so it is a journey into hell, and it's a journey even into a deeper hell, because even hell is not sort of portrayed in that kind of light. But some of what these girls have gone through is crazy.
Is it only girls?
I think there's. I mean, obviously, we've had cases where we've had boys come through, but with the boys, it's not sort of gang related. It's like if somebody's groomed a child, it'll be for that person's satisfaction or control or power or whatever. It's a one-to-one. It's not really. I haven't come across a case where a boy has been passed on and gangs are controlling them or not. But you know, mainly it's girls that, and I think it's also a fact that boys find it very hard to sort of come out as quickly as the females do. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So has it created a real conflict between British Sikhs, British Hindus, and British Muslims?
I think it is. This issue is a very sort of dividing issue. It's, I mean, the terminology that the papers have used and the media have used, the terminology Asian, and Asia is a very, very big continent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know off air we were talking about football. Yeah. And I remember in the early 70s, and as a football fan and supporting England, wherever England went to play in Europe, if they'd lost or they didn't play well, there'd be some certain, people who would riot or do something silly, and it would be headlines in the paper, English hooligans. English hooligans. They were never called European hooligans. They were always called English hooligans.
Yeah.
And that's where we've said that why don't then the papers or MPs or whoever's in a power position, why don't they say you have the data, you all the police forces have the data, the names of the people, the countries that they're from, and you can, it'll take you 10 minutes to collect the data and you see the names, and why can't you call them for what they are? Call a spade a spade. Mm. And that causes a lot of conflict because, certain people say you're picking on us, you're racism, and they'll use words which, or abuse you on online or whatever. But, you're racist. In my books, racism was when you supported Hitler or a Mussolini or stuff like that. But you're called a racist now when you want to stand up for your own daughter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, racism.
That's crazy. And then you've got your right wing or your right wing supporters. No, we're not supporting anyone. But there's a crime being committed. Crimes have been committed, and this should be looked at. I mean, the figures as their own, the Quilliam report, when they done the report, and I remember when they started the report, they wanted to prove this narrative that it's not just Pakistani people doing it. And that was the start of his report. And then at the end, he's saying, well, I couldn't report that. It's 84%. They came out with them figures. So, but I mean, look, there are people who are going to abuse and use you. Only a couple of days ago, we're not saying they're not groomers. Groomers or sexual abuser can belong to any faith, any culture, any sort of denomination, but we're not just saying, but there is a high percentage of one group. Now, if the governments are right and they really want to get down to the bottom of this, it's only in the best interest and harmony of the country that people know the truth, and then resources could be put towards that truth rather than just ignoring the fact that it's a problem. And but we're not going to say what the problem is and who's causing it and why it's being caused, when they have the resources to just very easily. It's only a couple of days ago, there was a gang from Bolton. 2 days ago, I think they got convicted, and they were abusing girls. Okay, these were 6 white men. Mm-hmm. In our community, I remember attending that court case up in Leeds. This was the Huddersfield grooming gang, and I was working with 3 young people from that area. From 2014, but this came to light in 2018, and there was a Sikh guy, and I wanted to go to court and show my disgust. But there was also 2 Punjabi guys, but there was also 20 Pakistanis in the same group. Mm. So we want to call a spade, and we were in our disgust. how, why, and I remember even going to his family.
To whose family?
To the Sikh guy's family. I remember knocking on their door, having a word with the...
Did they let you in?
Yes. They let us in because I'm a community worker. But it wasn't a very good dialogue. Because, again, it's always, no, they've got it wrong. The girls have just made it up. And, you know, and I think he's serving 30 years. And every case that's been convicted, no, they've got it wrong. These girls are just doing it for the money. These girls are doing it for that. So, you know, it's a never-win situation. But I do believe that the authorities have got the resources. They've got every case logged on computers. So they're not going to move any paperwork. They just got to sit in front of a computer and get all these police forces around the country and say, well, hey, let's have a look at your data and let's have a look at your data and let's have a look at your data. And there you are. And that's why I feel that the national inquiry has not been done.
Oh, my God.
You know, and then, you know, you're saying local inquiries or 5 towns will do it, but you've got to ask, and I mean, that's so silly and stupid, is that if it's happened in 5 towns, just talk to the 5 towns, but this is happening across the country, the length and breadth of the country. So why deny a national inquiry? And once you get the inquiry, hey, we might be wrong. We might get it wrong. But it'll be proved. It'll be proved either way.
Yeah, let's look into it.
Yeah.
I find it really revealing that, you know, when there was a Sikh person, it's like you took it upon yourself. Like, hey, this is my responsibility. I'm going to go to their house and speak to them. It's like, I'm from a Jewish background. It's like if I didn't want to criticize Epstein or someone, it's insane. I would be the loudest voice condemning the madness. And I do speak about like the Hasidic Jews. Sometimes there's some extreme stuff going on in those communities. I've spoken out about, I can't imagine not wanting to do that and distance yourself. But we don't hear many Muslims, not prominent Muslims, coming out and speaking about this. Why not?
Whether it's denial, I remember actually 2014, when the Professor Alexei J report came out on Rotherham, we were actually in Rotherham for a couple of days when the report came, and we were talking. Nobody wanted to talk to us and say why. No one.
I want to press you again then, because I asked you before, and I don't know what I want to know what's going on in your mind about, because it sounds like it's not really actually just a Muslim problem. This is a Muslim Pakistani problem.
I think it's a cultural problem, the way they're brought up and the way they think that they can treat other people that don't belong to their
clan.
That is the number one thing. There's so many different sort of parts to this, I would say. So just by 1 or 2 things, I don't think we would cover it. And but yeah, coming back to that Sikh guy, I actually stood outside court when he walked in, and the Sun newspaper must have taken a photograph and put it out there, but it sort of put us in such a light that there were a lot of white people protesting and myself, and then again the right-wing labels used again. But the reality was I just wanted to sort of show my disgust at that one particular individual, and which we did, which we did, but yeah,
it's such a it's a weird thing, this, because I always try, and I think it reminds me of something you said at the beginning. You were talking about you try and find where we all agree, or where we're together, and those kinds of things. And I think sometimes I can be a bit naive about human nature, and even discussing the grooming gangs or the R word gang you can't say on YouTube and all of these things, it's still sort of words. And then you really think about what, because I guess part of me, I don't know why this happens. I start thinking about that man and I start to almost feel sorry for him because he's being led away. Everyone hates him now and all those things. And then I think, oh, but hang on, what he actually was part of and what he did, I'm almost unable to empathize with evil on that level. And what all of those others involved in those gangs, white people as well who have been in those gangs.
Yes.
It's like we're living with another race of people.
Well, certainly, I mean, if you just look at sexual abuse and try to understand the very mindset of these people and how their brain is wired up, it is definitely different from what a normal human being is the way they're wired up. You wouldn't want to hurt a child. You wouldn't want anybody else to hurt your child. So how come you're hurting these children beyond? Do you know, I've been in this country since the age of 2, but I don't have words in English to describe some of the level of abuse.
Because it's not like, because there are some individuals who I think who do this thing on an individual level who don't realize they're hurting the kid, or they try to make themselves not realize it. But when we're talking about a gang of this nature, they know that they're doing just unspeakable things.
When you're passing people on, you're using and abusing yourself, and then you've got friends and families, and it's a group of people. They're groups of people. A gang, even when we talk about a gang, we're talking about, it's different from a group of people. I don't know if it makes any sense. These people are known to each other. These people would sit in family environments together, knowing what they're doing together outside as well.
Yeah, so they're sitting there having like dinner.
Yeah, you could have the whole family. You could be in a gathering. You could be, and knowing what they're doing. So you could, in gangs, you might have the young man. He's only known to the gang members. He's 5 or 6 gang crew, but he's not known. What the family won't know what he's doing, or that group won't know. But this is
the wives know.
I believe so, but whether they can do anything is a different thing. Whether the control aspect of their households are different.
It's part
whether they have a voice. It all depends on that.
Is part of this in terms of attacking these children? Is it racially or religiously motivated? Because are there Muslim victims, children, or is it white?
I have come across where young
Muslim victims,
young Muslim families, say born in this country, who have contacted us to help their children. I don't get it's not massive in numbers. I don't know whether it's sort of happening in big droves, because we can only go on by the data that, or the telephone calls that we get. There is a very high percentage of Hindu girls being sexually abused. Obviously, we set up as a Sikh organization. We help everybody, by the way. But we would get concerned Sikh parents coming to us. So that's the data that we have. We don't have data on Chinese or West Indians. It's only the people who use our service. But it happens in all cultures. But again, there's a certain part that when you look at the percentage is very high in one. Something is wrong. Something has got to, we've got to accept that something is wrong, and then something needs to be set up and then looked at. And we know, from the Alexei J report, wholesale failures on everywhere, from the politicians to the local councillors to the organisers that were dealing with this sort of thing, law enforcement agencies, for not being, they didn't want to be called racists. So just, this is one thing that I try to grapple and try to get my head around is, why would you allow thousands and thousands of thousands and thousands of children to be damaged beyond belief? What do people gain from it?
Well, not being called racist.
Yeah.
How pathetic is that?
Yeah. And you've got, I work with ex-policemen. I work with a guy called John Wedger. He's from the Met. Mm. And I remember he had to go, I think it was him, had to go to the Supreme Court to the whistleblowing thing so he can come out with things. He was always, the doors were always closed when he went to his high authority. Just don't touch it, leave it. The police officer in Greater Manchester, she had to resign from her job because
Maggie Oliver.
Yeah, Maggie Oliver. There's a crime here. There's a crime. There's a crime. Okay, there's a crime. Forget about it. And these are people at the top. And so he's coming down from the top. And what benefit did Britons have where you can have thousands of damaged children who are not going to be great contributors in the future? And look where all the resources are then got to go. You still got to put money in to get them right and get them sort of functioning and whatever. So I just can't see where a blind eye was turned to this kind of thing. I don't see. I just, sometimes you're sitting there and you come up with this and then you come up with that and you're thinking.
Have you run up against that kind of bureaucracy or whatever it was that made them inactive or yourself, but when reporting things?
Yeah, we look, when you go up against a narrative and you're going against something, a big machine like the system, you're going to get problems. Because I think the system, they like sheep. Sheep are easy to control. Mm. They don't like lions roaring. And then the system will rubbish you. The system will...
Has that happened to you?
I think, yeah, because, even within our own community, and this makes you laugh, but when we were going around the Gurdwara saying this is happening, then Gurdwaras would say, well, we sit with the police. We sit on meetings with the police. And the police are saying, bring us the evidence, bring us the evidence, bring us the evidence. I remember many years ago, a newspaper, you have that act after 25 years or 30 years, they have to come up with the goods. They can't sort of lock it up.
Oh, they have to release the information.
They have to release the information. And I remember a police force, West Midlands Police Force, with the sexual crimes. They were sitting on data, but yet they're asking you to produce data. And then you going into a meeting with other leaders would come back to us and say, well, the police don't have anything. How come you guys have got it? So it was turning your own community against you.
Just because you wanted to reveal the most barbaric sexual crimes imaginable.
That's right, yeah. So you get that. And then obviously a mistrust is created. And I remember it was, I think it was the couple of very high profile cases that, I think one was in 2007 which we were involved in. And it took us 40-odd days to resolve that case. But because it was a high-profile case, it was an 18-year-old girl. And obviously the police was involved. But then all temples, all gurdwaras were involved. And because of that, everybody knew about the problem. And we were able to successfully sort of get the child back. And she's doing okay currently as well. And because of that, I think the tide changed. And also, I would say that journalists, a good friend of ours used to write for the Times. I think he still does. Andrew Norfolk. And I remember a lot of his stuff started coming out in 2004, 2005 about grooming gangs. And that now it's not just you're saying it now. This is a journalist from the Times saying it. And then I think the narrative changed completely when the BBC put the program out. Now it's BBC saying it. So it must be true, you know what I mean, sort of thing. And that sort of then changed the tide a bit. And then, but it was like I said, there was a lot of brick walls, and these brick walls were put in place where just to sort of make you a troublemaker.
Have you got into confrontations with people from the Muslim community?
You get a lot of abuse. Don't get me wrong. You get a lot of abuse.
What kind of thing?
Social media abuse. All sorts of name calls and everything. That's sort of pretty prevalent.
Must be difficult for you and your family.
Yeah, I mean, it's the nature of the beast. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But the truth is the truth.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. And you stick to your truth.
How do we solve this issue? Do you have any optimism?
I don't, unless you've got this will go all the way up to the top. Unless you've got somebody at the top who's going to say, I'm not really bothered about the seats or the, parliamentary this and that. We just need to get down to the bottom of it. Because if you look at the whole system, the whole party system, it's about, I need your votes. So I'm going to ignore certain things, what you're doing.
Yeah.
You can never get to the truth that way. But it needs to be somebody very brave. I also believe that if reporting was done in a different way, if you don't have a victim, you don't have a crime, yeah?
Yeah.
But that's in all crimes, but not in terrorism. So if a third person sees something and reports it to the police of terrorism, that such and such is, that would be taken very, very serious. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what I believe that if the authorities, the schooling, parents, because the person who's being groomed, and remember they use the lover boy model, the Romeo love and all this. So if you perceive that you're in love with someone, you're not going to the police. You think you're in love. He might be beating you, he might be doing certain things, but then he'll give you 3% of love. You're not going to go to the police. You still think you can change him. And that can continue on for years. Right? But if, like school or a teacher, if they can see that there's a drop in her, and we feel that she's been completely misled and somebody's using her, that's information the police should take very seriously. and investigate these guys.
Yeah.
And that might stop a lot of level of abuse because of third-hand reporting, second-hand reporting.
Because this shouldn't be for your job. You know, this should be the police. You shouldn't have to keep like flying girls out of the country to protect them or around the country. This is bonkers.
But then again, look, if you look at the convictions for sexual grooming, I don't think the girls have gone straight to the police. They've gone through some charity, a rape crisis center, or someone that, because the confidence level is very, very, very low.
Yeah.
And they've created that sort of atmosphere where, a lot of these girls weren't listened to. So why would they go? And why other girls who are suffering, listening to other girls, would go to the authorities? Because these weren't listened to. They missed the signs or ignored the signs. Because of certain maybe conditions that were put on them. So I do believe third and second-hand reporting of people who are in authority schools, because schools will see you 8 hours of the day, parents, whoever's looking after the children, is a change of behavior from a positive to a negative, and they're sort of finding stuff out, then that should be taken very, very seriously. And I believe that you can really, really cut down on this kind of crime. This is a safe crime to do. This is a very, because if the person is in love with you, it is not going to the police. It's not going to the authorities. So you can safely do what you want to do. And when we've come across girls where I said, well, okay, fine, you love this person, but how come you were sleeping with A, B, and C and you were able to go to different flats? Oh, because he told me he owed them money, or they're going to break his legs, or so I was doing it to save my lover.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The lies that they tell their kids.
Yeah. So, I mean, I tell you what, it just comes to mind. There was this 17-year-old girl really struggling up in Bradford. And I went to speak to her. She was 16, going 17. And then I went to her parents' house. And she, I think, was under care or something of the authorities. A Sikh girl. I went to her parents. We took their permission, the parents' permission. We said we'll take her into the Midlands, and we'll talk to a counsellor. We'll look after her for a bit, just to get right into her mindset and see what's happening. And I remember having a really nice conversation, coming back with her, and I settled her in a house up in Shropshire, just so that she's comfortable. And I thought I'll give her 3-4 days before you start sort of talking to her. And I went up north because we had a case up in Newcastle. And then I had a phone call from Yorkshire Police. Sorry, not Yorkshire Police, the West Midlands Police, saying, where is this person? And I said, the person is with us in Shropshire. Well, we need her back. This is Yorkshire Police talking to West Midlands Police. And I said, yeah, fine, that's not a problem. But we have the parental, we have the fathers and mothers. We've got a letter saying that, we're taking it with the parents' consent. I think within 24 hours, they had the girl back in Yorkshire. do you know what? Till this date, I don't even know if the girl exists or not.
You can't get hold of her?
No.
The parents?
No.
What happens when you try to contact the parents?
Nothing. Dead. Dead lines. And people in Bradford are saying they've never seen the girl anywhere.
It's like the police don't seem to realise what they're dealing with.
Yeah, and she complained about rape. And this is how we got involved, actually. She complained of rape with the centres that she was in, or the person who was running the centre had raped her. So we wanted to get down to the bottom of it. We wanted her for a couple of months, see if, what we can do with her. Within 24 hours, while I was in Newcastle, they'd taken her, and we've never seen her, never heard of her. We don't even know if she exists or not anymore. So it is sometimes you're trying to fight this fight with one hand tied behind your back, really. So this is where we really emphasize on raising awareness, educating people. You know, we do courses for parents, 10-week courses where we spend an hour with them, telling them the sort of warning signs, how to set boundaries, how to sort of talk to your children, how to communicate in a better way, how to sort of look at the red flags, look at every aspect. And even, obviously, we know now online grooming is happening.
I've got another question for you, but where can people sort of follow you and find out more about you?
Or you can actually just go on Google and just put Sikh Awareness Society, and you can come to the main webpage, and from there it'll tell you contacts and anything. There's about 6-7 different columns there, and whatever you want you can get off the webpage. But we are on Facebook, we are on Insta, we're on YouTube, we're on social media so that people can find us. And this is how people around the world sort of contest. We do have a helpline, a number in the UK, which obviously people in the UK can use. But majority of the time, if people don't find us within the community, they'll ring their local Gurdwara up, and the Gurdwara will give our number down or something like that. Yeah.
Actually, before my last question, I want to know why do Sikhs have long hair and beards?
Uncut. We believe that God is perfect. He's created everything in perfection, and He's everything in perfection. And we want to stay to that form of perfection from birth to death.
Do you never cut your beard?
No.
So does it get to a length where it just stops growing?
Yeah, it just stops growing, yeah.
Because I swear I've seen some people where it goes down to their feet.
Yeah, some people, I mean, you know.
That's just genetics.
It's just basically genetics. And like everything else, if your prophet says one must do this, our gurus, we have 10 gurus, and they've said from state one, not cutting your hair. This is one of the biggest cardinal sins, cutting hair. So baptize Sikhs. I use the word baptize because we're in the West. I mean, it's not a ceremony like baptism, but it's just going through a ceremony where you take vows and you go through all the conditions and everything, and then cutting hair.
No,
it's a no-go. Drinking, smoking. Must have a kada on the 5Ks. So kada.
It's a sort of bracelet for some people listen to audio.
You got kesh, which is the hair. Kanga, which is the comb in the hair. And you got the kirpan and the kashara, the short. So it's a uniform, and you must stay in that uniform.
Do you have to sort of do things to your beard, or does it stay that way?
Oh yeah, you look after your body,
like beard oil. Or something.
You look after it in the best way, that you can, and that you should. Yeah, because I'm also a believer that in this is actually the real temple, and the soul, God exists in this temple.
Do you wear, what's the word, like a turban? Do you wear that at home?
I wear a smaller version of it.
Oh.
Yeah, but my head is always covered, even at home. And yeah, you just have to, once you take baptism, which is called Kande Batte Di Paul. So once you've gone through the ceremony, then you have to live under them conditions. And I've been sort of baptized back in 1984. So since 1984, all the way to the present, I try to live up to the ideals. And remember, we're human beings. We can sort of fail and learn from it, and it's about growing. But trying is the best way. We try to adhere to what was told to us at that particular time in the ceremony, and then ask God for strength all the time.
Who's a heretic you admire?
When you say heretic,
I suppose anybody who went against typical opinion, any kind, could be a family member, could be Winston Churchill, someone that you admire who...
I would just go back to my guru, my 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, when the whole of it, the Sikh community was persecuted. He gave up his 4 sons. They were martyred because they wouldn't change their faith. They wouldn't change their religion. 2 of his younger sons were 7 and 9. They were imprisoned. And they were asked to change their faith, to take on Islam by the Mughals at that time. They refused in court. Can you imagine a 7-year-old and 9-year-old in court because of their faith?
When was this?
It's just going back in 1704. So it's recent, probably just over 300 years. So this taking place, about 1704. And thousands of Sikhs who were martyred because of their faith. We had a price on our heads, and one way of distancing us from our faith, our hair were cut. So can you imagine how important the hair is, to keep the hair and to keep the wasn't it? And this was all brought upon the spirit by the 10th Guru, who gave up everything. His father was a martyr, his mother was a martyr, his 4 sons were martyred, and yet he didn't lose faith. And that inspires me every day.
That's a fascinating heretic. Yes. People, please go and check out the Sikh Awareness Society. I'll put a little link down below. Mohan's been absolutely wonderful, so please do check that out and support his and our cause here. Spread that message, hit the like button, and subscribe to the channel. Keep watching it as well.